Hey guys, Paul here from familywheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And check this spot out this week. We're in Dry Island Buffalo Jump Provincial Park, and it is absolutely stunning out here. And we got here in a pretty darn beautiful thing as well, this new Mazda CX-9. I love the lines on it. This vehicle's been in Mazda's line since 2007, but it's never had a redesign, just kind of refreshes here and there. Well, for 2016, from the ground up, a whole new version of this vehicle. In fact, up until now, the CX-9's been based on the same platform as what we see on the Ford Edge. It's a little bit shorter, even though actually interior space is a bit better. They're making it a lot lighter as well, and they have now, instead of an old V6 like we had in the previous version of the CX-9, a turbocharged 2.5-liter engine, which Mazda's saying that with the fact that it's a lighter vehicle, we should be seeing about 20% better fuel efficiency from a car like this, which should lead the class as well, by the way. But let's see what this car is like for day-to-day driving. We'll put it through our standardized raft of tests and hop on the open road as well. That's all coming up this week on Family Wheels. So I said the same thing of that CX-3, much smaller crossover in Mazda's line that I tested for you last year. The looks on all of the Mazda vehicles right now are just amazing. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in one of their sedans or hatchbacks or in a 7-passenger SUV. They've got this kind of sports car inspired roadster look to them. These nice long bonnets up front with the scooped in front grille. They kind of look like Jags of days gone by in my mind, and I could look at this vehicle from the outside all day long. You don't say that very often with a 7-passenger SUV. It's pretty. And you're going to get the same sport-inspired looks regardless of the trim that you go for in the CX-9. Even the base trim looks darn good. But be aware, $35,000 in the GS trim is not going to get you all-wheel drive. That's a front-wheel drive vehicle. You're going to have to spend an extra $2,500 on top of that base price. I don't know why you'd buy a car like this in Canada without having all-wheel drive. But then when we get into the higher level trims, the GSL, the GT, and this signature trim that we're in here today, so 4 trims to choose from, all-wheel drive just comes standard. It's not even an option to you. But aside from the fact that you're not getting all-wheel drive in that base trim, I love all the standard equipment that comes in this CX-9. And I think that it's giving the Korean brands, Kia, Hyundai, a serious run for its money, even though this is a made in Japan car. Let me just run down this list for you. It's so long I have to use a cheat sheet here. We've got Bluetooth connectivity in the base trim, LED headlights, heated front seats, 8-way power driver's seat, 3-zone automatic climate control, 7-passenger seating. That third row is not an option. A backup camera, a 7-inch infotainment system. It's pretty unreal what you're getting for 35 grand in this car, and definitely makes it stand out compared to a lot of the other competition out there. But if you want things like leather seating surfaces or navigation, a slightly larger infotainment system screen, or these active safety features like adaptive cruise control and blind spot monitoring and lane keeping assist systems, if you want a sunroof, you're gonna have to look to the higher level trims of the CX-9. And then when we bump up into the signature level trim at $50,000, yes, it's a few $1,000s on top of the next trim down, which is the GT, but man, the attention to detail in here is top notch and has Mazda hitting way above its weight class here. For 50 grand, we're getting things like Napa leather seating surfaces. This is the highest grade of leather that Mazda has ever used in any of its vehicles, and these seats are so comfortable. I've been driving in them for a few hours here, and it's just like butter. They're gorgeous. Then we have, apparently from Mazda, they say that the company sourced this open pore rosewood from a Japanese guitar manufacturer. Again, just beautiful, and I think it makes it kind of have a bit of a Volvo XC90 kind of look inside here. Then we've got this brushed aluminum, which is not just plastic dressed up to make it look like aluminum. It's real aluminum, so it's not going to scratch up and mark up and ding up and look kind of junky over time as your kids start to come in here and use this vehicle. Soft touch surfaces throughout. I mean, we compare this to a $75,000 Acura MDX, and the kit is here, the look is here, the feel is here. You're getting some serious value at 50 grand in this signature trim. And I think that it has interior design cues like we'd see in a Lexus or even in some of the European brands. Looking good here in the CX-9 in the signature trim. But some of the things that I was a little bummed not to see in the CX-9 and the higher level trims anyway, we've got a sunroof, yes, but it's a tiny little sort of mid-90s feeling sunroof, where so many of the other manufacturers are going to full-blown panorama sunroofs, and they really do make the car feel a lot airier and brighter. We also don't have ventilated front seats for hotter summer days in the front row, and in the second row we don't have heated seats, even on this signature trim, something that you'd expect to see in a $50,000 SUV. So let's get down to how this car drives, because Mazda's done something interesting that a lot of manufacturers are opting to do right now, and that's that they're saying bye to that V6 and going instead for a smaller 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. I thought 4 cylinders, 2.5 liters, a 7-passenger SUV, I don't know. Mazda's saying the fuel efficiency is better, yet you're getting more horsepower out of this engine. So I thought, okay, let's give it a shot. And indeed, we've got amazing power here. The turbo lag is really minimal off the line. I've got it when I want it here on the highway as well. The power is there when I want to pass someone on a hill. Yet my fuel efficiency, Mazda's saying we should see 8.8 to 11.2 liters per 100 kilometers. And that's exactly where we're at. I'm in the sweet spot, 9.2 liters per 100 kilometers on a mix of highway and city driving this week. For a 7-passenger SUV, that's pretty remarkable. Now, regardless of the trim that you go for in the CX-9, you're getting this same engine, you're getting the same 2.5 liter turbo with a 6-speed automatic transmission, and it's a very smooth combination. No complaints here at all, really. The downside to it, you're not going to get the towing capacity that you would get in a traditional non-turbo V6. So this car tows 3,500 pounds, and that's not very good. There are minivans that tow better, that tow more than that. Also, when it comes to the ride comfort, Mazda's found a nice middle ground between not so firm a ride that when you go down a potholed back alley or something that you're going to get jostled to death, but also not so soft a ride that you're getting lots of bobbing and weaving in the corners. And it makes me feel like I'm not driving in a 7-passenger SUV until I look back and see that third row perched way back there. But where this car kind of fell middle of the pack was with our decibel reader test. So 100 kilometers an hour on the same stretch of highway as we do with all of our vehicles, this car reached 62 decibels. And that's not terrible, but it's certainly not as good as that Ford F-150 that we tested a couple of weeks ago, which reached 55 decibels, and it's certainly not at luxury SUV territory. Yeah, that's despite the fact that Mazda says they put a lot of thought and effort into making this a quieter cabin for 2016, some more baffling and insulation in the interior, some better window technology. Still a bit of a noisy ride here on the highway. Meanwhile, here in this second row, man, I am pleasantly surprised at just how much headroom I have as a full-size 6'2" adult, and also legroom, even with the driver's seat set for a tall driver, isn't bad either. We still have these high-level amenities continuing in through the second row here with this brushed aluminum, this stitched leather. Nice to see in the higher-level trims a built-in sunshade here on the CX-9 for keeping the glare out of young kids' eyes. One thing that I don't like, speaking of keeping young kids back here, accessing these anchor points here for child seats is really difficult, and if you're constantly taking car seats in and out of this CX-9, that's going to get to be a real pain. Another thing that's a pain, these Napa leather seats are amazingly comfortable in this second row, but again, I sound like a broken record at this point. We've got these perforations here, which are all the rage right now and look really sporty and cool, but man, you spill some potato soup or yogurt or who knows what back here with your kids, and these are going to be a real challenge to keep clean. You can't just wipe them down, and that's one of the real beauties of buying leather seats traditionally anyway. One thing that's nice here in this second row is that we have this bar down here which you can use to slide this second row forward and give you a little bit more legroom for your third row passengers if you don't need quite so much in the second row. And let's see what that third row looks like now, because Mazda's saying that even young kids should be able to access it without any problems. We pull this handle right here, the seat slides forward. Yep, that's about as easy as it gets. And I'm gonna hop in back here. A lot of times these third rows in SUVs aren't fantastic. I'm curious to see what the CX-9 is like. Hey, this isn't too bad. I've got, well, not great headroom, let's be honest, but your chances are you're going to have younger kids back here. And the legroom, especially when you've put those second row seats forward a little bit, is really quite good. I'm really actually pleasantly surprised by that. Meanwhile, for our standardized trunk test, really pleasantly surprised with the CX-9. With that third row folded down, our standard amount of gear that we put into all of our test vehicles, which is a fold-up stroller, a backpack, a diaper bag, a couple of bags of groceries, and a soccer ball. All that was able to fit into just one side of the trunk, which means you have tons of extra room for, say, the family dog, or a lot of extra groceries, or a trip out to the mountains. Meanwhile, that same amount of gear, when we put that third row up, things start to get quite a bit tighter. You can see the auto lift gate comes on some of the higher level trims, and you can see here, yeah, it's getting fairly tight. Big reason for that is that the CX-9 has a sloped off rear end, which gives it a sporty look, but means that if you had, say, a boxed off rear end like we have in our Volvo, you'd have a lot more room for more stuff, but we don't have that here. Another thing that kind of bothers me as a full-size adult, you can adjust this tailgate to go to different heights for taller or shorter drivers, but even at its max, you can see here that I'm kind of bumping my head every time I'd have to duck down to get into this trunk. It's kind of a little bit bothersome. Another thing, if you've got a family dog, check this out. I noticed this with the CX-3 too. It's a really high upper sill here on this rear trunk area. So it means that if the dog's old, or if you've got a little dog that can't jump up very high, it's going to be a little bit challenging for them. And then finally, speaking of family dogs, let's put this third row down. Really easy to do, just like that. But even with that second row as far back as it'll go, you've got a gap there, which could create some problems if there was sudden braking. The dog could fly forward, lose a leg down there, and wind up breaking it in a worst case scenario. If it were me, I'd probably throw some blankets into that hole or something to fill it up, just for safety's sake. We're finishing off our 360-degree tour of the CX-9 here in the front passenger seat. I've thrown a rear-facing car seat into place there, and a lot of times those make this front row passenger comfort a little bit tight, but even as a full-size adult, still plenty of headroom. My legroom's not terrible either. In fact, this car looks a lot smaller than a traditional 7-passenger SUV. I thought that it might be a little bit squished back there. The third row might not be great, and that this front row comfort with that rear-facing car seat could be really challenged as well. But every one of these positions in this vehicle is far more comfortable than I expected. The CX-9 has a lot of tricks up its sleeves. It's kind of like a clown car. You know, you don't expect it to be quite so roomy on the inside. I'm impressed. You know, to this day, I still get sticker shock sometimes when I go to pick up a vehicle I'm going to be testing for you. I look at the spec sheet, I'm just like, whoa, are you kidding me? That much money for this car? But I've actually had the opposite effect of sticker shock this week. I've looked at this car from a fun to drive, fuel efficient, excellent standard features, Japanese made 7-passenger SUV, and I feel like regardless of the trim you're looking at, whether it's that base $35,000 CX-9 or all the way up here to this top of the line signature trim, you're gonna feel like you're getting your money's worth. And while we put our vehicles through all kinds of standardized tests, sometimes I find the very best test is the gut check at the end of the week. Do I want to give it back? And I really don't want to with this CX-9. It's been a lot of fun, and I think that it's going to be a real shoe-in for our 2016 SUV pick of the year come Christmas time. But what do you think of the CX-9, and how do you think it stacks up to the competition? You can leave a comment below, subscribe while you're at it, we'd love to have you join, and then you can head to the website familywheels.ca for our bullet point list of pros and cons for the CX-9, along with our Family Wheels report card. Next week on the program, we're talking with the head editor at autotrader.ca. He's walking us through top used cars under $5,000 to send your kid off to university with. Until then, have a great week, and we'll see you in 7 days.